All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the ancient text of the Bhagavad Gita, specifically verse 1.1, to reveal a psychological masterpiece that's literally been hiding in plain sight. Now, most people think of ancient texts as, dusty history lessons, but what we're about to unpack is a razor-sharp analysis of the human mind, leadership, and the absolute dangers of moral blindness. Let's get right into it.
Here is the direct English translation of the very first verse of the Gita, spoken by King Dhritarashtra. Now, on the surface, most people read this as a super simple historical roll call right before a massive war kicks off. You've got two armies, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, standing on the battlefield, and a physically blind king is just asking his advisor, Sanjaya, for a quick status update. It seems pretty straightforward, right?
But here's the thing. This isn't just a basic intro to set the scene. No way. As we'll see, this single, solitary verse is actually the entire psychological foundation of the Gita. It brilliantly introduces these massive, complex concepts: attachment, ego, bias, fear, family favoritism, the whole shebang. The entire architecture of human suffering and moral failure is packed right here into this one sentence.
Section 1, Unlocking the Hidden Meaning. Okay, let's do a deep linguistic dive into two very specific Sanskrit words used in this opening verse to see what's actually going on. First up, notice how the battlefield is described. It isn't just called a regular plot of dirt or a piece of political territory. It's called Dharma Kshetra, which translates to the field of Dharma, or the field of righteousness. Instantly, that single word radically shifts the vibe. We're not just looking at a standard military clash over land anymore. We're stepping onto a profound spiritual and ethical testing ground.
Next, look at the word mamaku. King Dhritarashtra explicitly asks about my sons versus the sons of Pandu. And wow, this just perfectly illustrates how his ego is slicing reality right down the middle into mine and yours. He doesn't say our family or our children, even though they are all related. That deep-seated, attachment-based division, that's the root cause of human conflict right there.
Section 2. The psychology of moral blindness. This ego-driven division brings us right to the psychological core of the verse.
So the king is physically blind. We know that. But the text is actually using his physical state as a mirror for his internal state. Symbolically, the guy is profoundly morally blind. His inability to physically see the armies on the dirt of Kurukshetra is honestly nothing compared to his absolute inability to see the truth. And what does moral blindness actually look like here? It means knowing something is wrong but totally refusing to stop it because you're just too emotionally attached. King Dhritarashtra knows for a fact that his son is unjust. He knows the other side was wronged, and he knows this war is going to be utterly destructive. Yet, he just sits there, passive. His emotional attachment completely obliterates his ethical judgment.
Which brings up a really fascinating psychological question. Both armies are lined up, weapons drawn, completely ready for war. Everyone knows exactly why they're there. So, why does the king still ask, what did they do? Well, that lingering question reveals a huge hidden fear. Subconsciously, he knows that backing an unjust cause is totally unstable. He's actually terrified of the consequences and his own inevitable moral defeat.
Let's look at how this plays out. This outer conflict is really just a map for our own internal battlefield. Spiritually speaking, the Pandavas represent our higher qualities: truth, strength, focused intelligence. And on the flip side, the Kauravas represent those lower, darker tendencies fighting for control inside all of us: greed, aggression, and of course, blind attachment.
Section 3. The modern-day Kurukshetra. Now, you might be wondering, what does an ancient chariot war have to do with me today?
Well, this ancient text basically predicts every single modern institutional failure we see around us. In business, companies collapse when nepotism and ego replace merit. In politics, nations weaken when institutions get biased. Even in our own families, when parents blindly justify their kids' bad behavior instead of offering real disciplining love, that is the exact same moral failure.
The reality is, every single human life is a Kurukshetra. Every day, you and I step onto our own internal battlefield. We are constantly caught in this clash between doing what's right and doing what's easy, truth versus comfort, wisdom versus attachment. The struggles of these ancient kings, they're exactly the same struggles we face every morning.
Now, a quick but absolutely crucial side note. We've got to avoid some common misinterpretations here.
This text is definitely not a loophole to justify tribal hatred, blind nationalism, or unquestioning family loyalty when it's protecting injustice, and it absolutely does not glorify war. This battlefield is a deep, ethical, thought experiment about the real, severe consequences of unrighteousness.
Section 4. The Ultimate Ethical Lesson. As we wrap up this explainer, let's distill the ultimate truth hidden right there in this opening sentence.
Here is the big takeaway. Intelligence without self-awareness is incredibly dangerous. You could be the smartest person in the room, but if your ego, your greed, or your emotional obsessions are running the show, you're completely blind. Your own cognitive biases will literally blind you to reality, just like the king.
So what's the antidote? A true leader, whether you're running a massive corporation or just leading your own life, has to practice radical self-awareness. You have to protect justice without playing favorites, strictly control your personal biases, and honestly, have the courage to stand up to your own loved ones when they are in the wrong.
And this leads to such a profound realization about the structure of the Gita itself. Notice how it doesn't start with spiritual wisdom. It starts with Dhritarashtra's blindness. Because before we can even begin to learn anything, we first have to recognize our own biases, our fear, our ego, and our moral confusion. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on today. Take a hard look at your own daily Kurukshetra. Where is your attachment blinding your ethical judgment today? Who or what are you blindly protecting at the cost of your own righteousness? It's a tough question for sure, but it is the absolute first step towards true wisdom. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this ancient insight brings a little clarity to your own modern battlefield.